Shalom, my friends. Shalom, everyone. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, and I am delighted to get musical with you today because, oh my God, do we have a wonderful guest on the old-fashioned telephone to talk with us. Notice I even have a prop. This is an umbrella. I'm not going to open it completely indoors for obvious reasons, even though it's not a subscription that I ascribe to. Still, just being careful. Anyway, let me tell you about the 5-time Grammy winner and the member of the Grammy Hall of Fame that we have on the phone with us right now. Okay, of course, you know that he did Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. He did it on the album. He did it in the movie Butch Cassidy. But did you know that B.J. Thomas, he's also the guy who sang, "Hey, won't you play another somebody done somebody right?" That was him, for God's sakes. And Rock and Roll Lullaby, and he did Hooked on a Feeling. He's not the one with the Ooga Chagas, that came later, but he did the one that the Ooga Chagas were based on. And you even heard him week after week on the TV singing the theme for the TV show Growing Pains. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no pain giving you a B.J. Thomas. Shalom, Mr. Thomas. How are you?
Hey, thank you. I'm very pleased to be here.
Oh, we're very pleased.
Well, how are you?
I'm going to make you a little bit louder so everybody can hear you even better. So, you sound wonderful. You are 78 years old and you sound, God, and when you sing, you sound like you're in your 50s, for God's sakes. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Of course, we're quarantined right now for the most part during this problem we're having. But hey, I'm doing well in spite of that. Feeling good.
Well, how have you been? I mean, this is your life is music. Your life is performing, and here you are for 9 months with probably a few more months to come of just having to do everything in the walls of your house. I mean, how do you manage day to day to get through that?
Oh, well, yeah, and I guess everybody has a different system or whatever. I have my wife, excuse me, my wife Gloria is with me, so at least we're together, and we're just doing things together all day. You know, I have to go out to the odd trip, like to the drugstore or something, but other than that, we just stayed at home and we survived fairly well.
I mean, considering that you've been married 52 years and now you're with each other day after day, hour after hour, and you have not shot each other. This is amazing. This is a wonderful, best marriage ever, for God's sakes.
The best one, man, really.
Mazel tov, mazel tov. And she kind of, many years ago, sort of saved your life in a way, because you let the lifestyle, the rock and roll thing and the music thing kind of get to you, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I had certain, personal problems when I had my first hit record, but I had so many hits in such a short time that when I started out, what I mean is from the first hit to Raindrops, and it wasn't that easy to handle, but eventually I did get a handle on it.
But it had to do with quitting.
And without Gloria, I never could have made it without Gloria, that's for sure.
Well, she forced you to give up the booze, give up the pills and the drugs and whatever else you were doing, and said, look, it's either that garbage or me. And wise man, you chose her. Am I right?
Yeah, well, something like that.
Something like, not quite. It's a little more complicated than that. And also you chose, at least at the time, you chose Jesus, which is, that's fine. I know now you're more spiritual than religious. Is that really how you would describe yourself?
Just mainly to state the fact that we're not really religious, so we have respect for all religions, but we're not highly religious. We attend church really often, so sometimes I work, I'll perform in a church, but so that for that reason we kind of really our faith or whatever beliefs kind of expanded into more of a where we see the spiritual essence in a lot of areas, not just a limited one church.
Well, did you ever have sort of a kind of a spiritual awakening? Was there ever a moment when you felt you found, if not specifically God or Jesus or Moses or Rodney Allen Rippey, but some kind of either deity or force controlling the world.
Yeah, I did feel that. I was just coming out. Excuse me, I've got my throat's going off. I was kind of coming out of a fairly bad period, and yeah, I had an experience with a couple of guys from Texas. I had an experience with them to where I didn't really feel like I was in the essence of what I was looking for. Of course, it was in a religious sense, which was fine. It was a kind of a Bible thing, and I believe in I believe in the Bible, and yeah, it was just a whole spiritual thing where life kind of became a little bit more interesting because it kind of based my happiness on money and music and certain things like that. When we all know that that's not what makes you happy.
Well, I'm sorry, music makes me tremendously happy. When I hear good songs or great singers like you, that does make me as happy as anything else.
True. True, I can agree with. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Well, speaking of music, let's roll it back a little bit. When did you realize that you didn't just have a cute, nice voice for a kid, or that you could maybe sing in a choir a little bit? When did you realize that, oh, I have a real talent?
Well, I had been in a band a while. We all got a band together when I was 15, and I had recognized earlier in life that I had a good singing voice when I was 10, 11, 12. We were by circumstance lived down the block from the church or across the street from the church, and so of course I was attracted to the church just for because the kids were there and the music was great. I always thought the music, oh wow, this Southern gospel is really great. So that's how I first got into it.
And then of course
that's when I knew I had something different about my voice. I could tell something was different. I was interpreting the songs a little differently. It was in the band that we formed for a few years before I really knew, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Wow. And also in terms of your influences, this is amazing to me that at one point you actually went to see Hank Williams in concert. Do you remember that experience? What do you remember about seeing Hank in concert?
Well, we saw back I was about 8 years old. My dad took us all to the Houston Coliseum. And that was in the day when the entire artist list, all the members of the Grand Ole Opry traveled together at certain times. And Hank Williams was on the show along with Ernest Tubb, Cowboy Copas, and a lot of other people that I had heard about growing up. My dad loved country music, and so I saw Hank Williams sing that night. And I've been lucky over the years to, of course, see Elvis and see Frank Sinatra.
Well, all right. So, but instead, it's wonderful that you had those experiences. But tell us an anecdote. Tell us not just, oh, I saw them, but do you remember specifically anything about what they were wearing, anything about what they did, how they moved, what they said, a song that hit you and just knocked you sideways?
Yeah, you're perfectly right. I went. It's like I was in school. I just naturally was that way. I was so interested in music and the entertainers. But yeah, I studied the way they walked out, how their clothes looked. I studied how they were, and most of them, Bobby Bland, Jackie Wilson. These are guys that I saw many times, and I just couldn't help but notice that the best ones were very professional, and I just knew that's what I was going to do.
Now, did you tour or open for, or in some way do things with James Brown?
Yeah, I did. My first gig on my first hit record out of Houston, they booked me out with James Brown, and he was a huge idol of mine. And so we went out with James and really studied him and saw how he did things and just saw how cool he was. And he was, for some reason, he really liked us. We were just totally amateur guys trying to play music, so we were obvious to him that when we weren't in his class, but he we really liked us. He took care of us and treated us really well, and I learned a lot from that. I also worked with Jackie Wilson and a lot of people that I've loved, Eddie Floyd.
And Floyd, yeah. But here's the question, and you experienced and learned from and toured with so many of these different styles. I mean, Hank Williams is very different from James Brown. Is kind of different from, well, Jackie Wilson and Brown are a little closer. But did it take you a while to find your own personal style? I mean, so Elvis too. I mean, did it coalesce pretty quickly about, oh, this is how B.J. Thomas comes out on stage, sings, does his thing?
Yeah. Your personal style, whatever that may be, takes a process to become that style. Because I had to start out, I had to learn to sing, and kind of do the music of these people I admired so much, and so that the complete style was there. I could feel it in church, the way I would interpret this song and that song. And I was always going against what was written, and not melodically, but just the way I carried the tune. So I knew I had a proclivity to, something was going on there. So, and then that's what happened. My complete style formed, over the years. I think by the early '70s, I was pretty locked into my way.
Now, I want to break here for a moment just to tell people that A, we're talking to B.J. Thomas. B, you can find out all about what he's doing both before the pandemic and during, and God willing after, when he has some tour dates lined up for 2021 at his website, thebjthomas.com. But he's the B.J. Thomas on Facebook, and bjthomas.com is his website. But here's the question for you. The other thing that you have been doing is, in a good way, kind of smelly. Why don't you tell us about this?
I'm doing what?
You're doing. I gave you such a wonderful lead in there. Jews.
It's beautiful. I hated to mess it up.
No, I'll do it again. I'll do it differently. It's like Jews light candles once a week. And we light them on the holidays, and we even have when someone dies, we light candles, and the candles don't smell. They're just there. They melt. You have to clean them up.
Yeah.
But your candles, go. Tell us.
My candles are kind of tied to some of my music, but these are not like these are ideas and things that we've come up with the PR company and the management guys, and so we're just trying to think of things that might be encouraging to people, and so a candle may seem not a serious endeavor, but we just do it for the fans and the people that have been there for years. It's just something that they can relate to me and enjoy,
Yeah, well, what he's talking about is, if you go to the website, B.J. Thomas now has a line of scented candles. They're kind of named for his classic songs, and they have nice smells, a citrusy one. Tell us. I'm giving you the chance to plug them. What are the smells? What are the names?
Oh, gee, I don't know. I wouldn't know that. There are various names of my songs.
All right. Hooked on a Melting. I don't know what else you got there.
Raindrops would be among that, but hey, I'm not real good at pitch, man. It's just something that you can find on my site there, and you might enjoy it.
Well, let me ask. People would enjoy. God willing, we can go out next year at some point and see concerts again and hear music again.
Yeah.
And do that. So.
I hope so. I think the vaccine is coming along fairly well, and so we've got a good chance of getting there.
Well, you have tour dates, but you're almost, and you're in fabulous shape, but you're almost 80 years old. Have you felt yourself cutting back or moving a little slower, or you literally feel like you did in your 40s, 50s, and 60s?
It's different. It's basically when you get in your 70s, there's no faking. I mean, you are 70-something years old. So the 70s kind of it may slow you down. I don't really notice that much. I know I don't work as much as I did in the earlier years because I just can't get beat up that bad anymore. But I still work 50, 60 days a year when I have a chance to. And that takes up most of my time anyway. So yeah, I feel good about it. Love to do it.
That's wonderful. And of course, are you going to be releasing new music? Because hey, you're home and
Yeah,
I'm sure you have a studio
yeah,
somewhere in there. Yeah.
yeah. I'm going into a studio in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. As soon as I had it scheduled for July, but of course we had to postpone it.
Right.
With Dan Penn, the Hall of Fame songwriter, and Billy Lawson, another great writer, and we're going in to do some new stuff at Wishbone Studio in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, and can't wait.
Can you describe, like, when you hear, because you don't write your own songs generally, other people write for you. Can you tell what is it that makes a song right for you that someone else writes, and you kind of know, oh, I'll put that on the album. That one's also a good song, but it's not for me.
Yeah, yeah. I go with the judgment there. Sometimes you just like a song and you just love it so much better than anyone else likes it. And I think that's been one of my shortcomings, that I haven't been as prolific a songwriter as I should have been. But I had the pleasure to work with some of the great songwriters of my time: Burt Bacharach and Hal David, and Man and Wild, Mark James, and various people who were great writers. And a lot of the times, especially when we recorded together, we would hang out together for a few days, talk about what kind of songs, and they would see what was going on, and just as a group, they would write me songs that they thought would be tailored to me. So that was my best situation. But I've been very fortunate. I've worked with some of the really great writers, and as long as I can connect with the song in a personal way, or have a feeling, an emotion that connects to the song, that really helps me want to record that song.
Well, let me ask you. I certainly the movie studio didn't realize that Raindrops Falling on My would be. The director must have realized it, and it became this huge hit thanks to Butch Cassidy. But studio didn't necessarily know that it would fit. When you recorded that song, did it feel like hit, or did it feel like nice album cut?
Yeah, when I started working on it, was the movie version, which was done a little different than the #1 single version. It just had a banjo on it or something. It was very simple. And I think Burt was probably singing. And that was one of the good things about it is when I learned the melody, I didn't try to do my style or do whatever. I knew that the best way to do the song was to stay as close to what Mr. Bacharach composed as possible. But when we first did it, I knew I had great feelings, positive feelings about it, because it was in a great movie, a great Western movie. It starred, Paul Newman. It was a great movie from the get go, and so I had high hopes for it. But I was kind of disappointed at first, because the record came out in October of '69 and really didn't start selling records until December, when the movie came out. So I was going, oh man, and it got some bad reviews and things. And I thought, oh, come on. And finally it kicked in, and it sold like you wouldn't believe for about 3 years. It's just one of those songs that you have a singing career, you just hope you have a song like that. And it was just a beautiful thing.
And that gets you through having to sing it in every single concert, every single time. Have to sing a line when you're doing a jingle on a station. There's like something in your head says no, not again. But the other part kicks in and says, no, this bought me my house and the car and the horse and the yacht and the airplane. Yeah, I think I'll sing it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. That's how you feel about it. I've never gotten tired of it or irritated by it. I have such good memories tied to it that I never really understood the concept where people have bad feelings about certain songs and they stop doing them. But I've known guys that have done that, and girls. But I have great feelings about Raindrops. It never bothers me. I'll always feel kind of privileged when I get to do it.
Well, let me ask you, what are one or two songs in your canon, because you've released a lot of albums over the years, that you think are as good as or even better than Raindrops, that you wish millions of people had gone out and bought also? Are there special songs to you that people don't know nearly as well?
Yeah. You know, when you're being successful, I think in this business, you're close to a lot of things that you miss. I mean, you'll miss this, but you'll get the next two things or whatever. And so there have been songs I've been very close to. You were always on my mind, and you know, various songs down through the years that I had an opportunity to record. A lot of tunes, if they were really good, they were recorded by other people. And I always had I don't know, I had a kind of a negative feeling about covering somebody else's song, and I know it's become kind of really accepted nowadays, and I think that's good. I think that's good. A lot of the big people do other big people's music, so that's good.
Do you have a favorite song of all time? Not one of yours, but just a favorite song that you will always listen to. You pull out on the iTunes, the Spotify, the 8-track player, whatever it is. You know, just
Yeah.
what song?
Yeah, I think this. I recorded this song in Atlanta, in Doraville, Georgia, Studio One there with Buddy Bowie and Steve Tyrell, and it's a song called "Most of All." And I think if I had to pick one song, which is hard to do sometimes, that would be the one.
Most of All. Could you remind us what album that is on of yours? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. What was that? It might have been on the Most of All album. I think there was
that would make
such
sense.
a thing.
Yeah.
I think, but I'm not sure. That's why I'm.
Well, and I also want to direct people once again to your website, bjthomas.com, because we talk about these albums. One of the nice things we've been doing during the pandemic is I think you go through like your basement or storage facility, and you dig out like a couple of albums or a box of something, you say you autograph it and say, here, fans.
Yeah.
This is a rarity.
Yeah, we're doing that. We're thinking about as many things like that as we can during this pandemic, because we know most people are just sitting at home and having to deal with this or that. And so we'll try to come up with something every now and then. But I'm signing a lot of old vintage albums and some new CDs that I had made. One for when I was in Brazil, and another with guest stars on it called the Living Room Sessions. And so I got stuff that I hope you'd like.
Yeah, and they're reasonably priced, and you personalize them, which I think is very, very nice. So it's a way.
Yeah, we're not asking hundreds of dollars for a signed album, $30, $40.
Yeah, why not? And, it costs $20 just to mail the thing. So it's not like you're making piles and piles of B.J. Thomas's autograph on an old album. It's a reasonable thing. Let me ask: how seriously, if at all, did you take the idea of acting back in like the 70s when you were dipping your toe? You did a movie called Jory, did some other acting work. It didn't quite pan out, but how serious were you about it?
Well, we kind of stopped with it because I back in those days, I would work sometimes 300 days, 300 shows a year. And then I had very little other time. And so Gloria and I, we sat down and talked over, if I was going to do music, that's wonderful. If I wanted to do movies, I should do that because she didn't want me to be gone all the time. So I've never chose to really drive hard at the acting part, but I kind of regret that now. I wish I had it.
Oh, okay. Wow. You've done, I think, a bit more recently. You were in a movie or two. Were you not?
Yeah, I was in a movie out in Arizona for a friend of mine called Jake's Corner, and this guy was Ron Santos' son, Jeff, and we had a lot of fun doing that. And but I just never have. If I was more established in that way, I think I'd get more phone calls for that kind of thing.
Because you could be getting right now sort of the Chris Christopherson roles that he was doing 10 years ago. You're in that, that macho, you still got it. You could even do a movie music. You could be, if they remake Chicago again,
man, we could really do a thing on
there
that.
You go. So, now, speaking of singing and singers, you did this on another podcast or webcast or something, but please, this is kind of cool. Tell us the time that you met Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons.
Oh, yeah. Well, Frankie, I've always loved him so much. When I was a kid, just starting out in the business, I would be on all those big rock and roll shows in Houston. Most of the time, we'd have to open up. We had no name, no hit records or anything. And one of those concerts, we happened to be in the dressing room with Frankie and the Four Seasons, and they began to loosen up vocally, and they went in the shower and started singing. And I went over and stood and was watching them. And they said, "Hey, would you like to hear our new record?" And I said, "You bet." Yeah. So they did Ragdoll in the shower. There was a great experience. But other than that, I've always admired Frankie Valli. I mean, he's always been such a talented guy to me. Such a great singer, and just a real dude.
Hey, but who of the people that you worked with and dealt with, especially earlier in your career, who gave you a leg up? Were there mentors? Were there people who really helped you along and promoted you and put you on their bills and things like that? Like who?
Yeah. Well, originally there was a guy named Roy Head who just passed away about a month ago that I grew up with in Houston. And he was a singer. And he sang the #1 pop song, Treat Her Right. I want to tell you a story. Everybody ought to know. I don't know if you remember. He was a great guy, a great entertainer. We became very close. And he was like the first guy that told me, "Hey, BJ, you're really singing good. You got something there." And that was all I needed at that time. Excuse me, to get going, because encouragement like that meant a lot. But I've had quite a few things down through the years where people have, patted me on the shoulder and tried to give me a little bit of wisdom, and that's been great.
Well, what wisdom do you give up-and-comers or people who are just starting in the business in a whole different music universe than you started out in? What would you tell them?
Well, I always encourage people that are new to develop their writing so that they can keep their music personal. If they want to write something for somebody else, of course, that's fine. They can write it for them. But to be able to, that's one of my shortcomings. Is I should have been a better writer, and it's hurt me at times that I haven't been, and I'm working on it. I kind of forgot your question. What did you say?
Oh, it's just advice to someone starting out in the business.
Of course. Yeah. It's like I said, get in, develop your writing talent and get in a band, because that means almost more than anything put together is being around other musicians playing and finding your part in there and getting the passion for whatever you want to do. So that's very valuable to do that.
Wow. Well, it has been so valuable and delightful talking with B.J. Thomas. Please remember, first of all, he's got the webpage, bjthomas.com. This is the place where you can find all the merchandise that he's got, the special rarities and things, and the personalized stuff that he's offering, as well as the candle collection that he's got. And I'm sure the company that's doing them will start adding more based on your songs as the sales take off and as more and more people start buying them. He also has his Facebook page, which is the B.J. Thomas on Facebook, as opposed to any other B.J. Thomas on Facebook. Let me ask you one last question, which is, what is the weirdest, funniest thing that ever happened to you, like when you're doing concerts or on tour?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. One time when I was on the Dick Clark tour, they had a tradition of playing a joke on people on the last night. And so, and this, I hope you understand this. I do. I'm So Lonesome, which was my first hit at that time, in a certain key that fits my throat. And so, unbeknownst to me, they put the song up three more keys, and I couldn't sing it. And that's as embarrassed as I've been. And of course, there's 1,000 other stories that probably wouldn't want to hear.
Oh, believe me, I would. Just because I'm a rabbi, tell me a story you don't think I want to hear. Just one, or maybe Gloria shouldn't hear it. Tell us. No?
Oh well, yeah. I don't know. I don't really have one.
Oh well. Well, what?
And what was that about another story?
Well, yeah, I'm saying, like, you know, you said that there are stories that you wouldn't necessarily, you know, tell for a mixed audience, but don't worry about it. So go ahead,
Okay.
share.
You know, I don't really have big stories, funny stories about it. I know when I did the Academy Award show, I was so nervous and apprehensive. I had so much anxiety about that show, and I had a guy that I worked with back then, a guy that worked with me called Steve Tyrell, and man, we had to make a pact that he wouldn't even be around me until I got that job done because it was making me so nervous. And of course, that whole show with the Academy Award, that was a huge memory for me.
I mean, what did it make you feel when the song did win the Academy Award, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head? I mean, did you just float? Do you remember the moment?
Yeah, you know, that's what you have to do. If I'm performing or doing a song, like when I did the song for that big show, I just had to make sure I did what I was there to do, and just do what I do, and not get shook up and try to do something that I didn't know what I was getting into. So you know, that's how I handle that.
Yeah, it's all about just knowing who you are, the preparation, and just accepting it. Yeah.
You know, if you know, if I know the song, when I learn a song, I've got to know it frontwards and backwards and sideways and everything. And the better I know the song, the more it becomes me, and not just the song. So I think if you know almost over prepare about learning a piece of music that you're about to do, you have to really make sure that you get that done. And then it's just a part of you from then on.
Well, the more I hear from B.J. Thomas, the more I like him. It has been just so lovely talking with you here in the neighborhood on Dave's Gone By. One last time, everybody go to bjthomas.com. Everybody check out his Facebook page. Everybody sing his songs, delight in his spiritual spirit. And all I can say is a great and happy shalom to you.
Well, hey, thank you, man, and thank you and all your listeners for being interested in what I'm doing and keeping me around all this time. And I really thank you, man. I had a great time.
Me too. Shalom.
Shalom.
Bye-bye.